We've been working on a 2002 Polaris SKS 700. It's a Gen 2 chassis with VES, which is a little bit interesting. Stock engine, everything is stock for the hood. Put a lot of time into this one here in the last few weeks. This is my sled for this year. I buy and sell a lot, so this is what I'm trying to get going. One thing I want to do is put together a little video on how to set your throttle position sensor. A lot of people maybe know how to do it, but they don't know how to build the little harness, and they're going to go spend 150 bucks on the TPS testing tool, which we don't need to give those guys money. We can do it ourselves with what we got, as long as you have a phone charging brick. I think most of us have cell phones, and a USB cable that you're willing to cut up. If you're not willing to cut any up, go on Amazon and order one for 58 cents. So starting off, this is a regular USB cable. It was actually a charger for an old calculator I used to have. Basically what you'll do, first things first, snip the end of it off, leave the rest of it nice and long so you have enough room to redo it if you screw it up. So cut it off. What you'll see in here is 4 wires. There's going to be a black wire and a red wire. Everything else you can ignore and cut off. All you need is the black wire and the red wire. That's your power and your ground. That's all that this thing is going to be doing, is supplying power. So this blue wire, I didn't have any red wire, so the blue is actually serving as my red wire. This is my positive cable right here. So I just went in there and this one's actually soldered. I soldered this blue wire onto the red wire that came originally out of here. And I have a little end on here. All that end was a spade connector, and I took a Dremel and I cut one half of it off, and then I put a new piece of shrink wrap on it. So that's your positive. Now, you gotta get a little more creative with the ground portion of this, because you have to back probe with the meter. So this connection here, this is going to be connected to your throttle position sensor, and so is this one. But this ground side, you also need to connect your meter to it, so you got to have 2 connection points coming out of the black wire of this USB cable. So I cut it, I soldered it back here, and then I ended up pulling on a little too hard, and the wires popped off, so then I just used these heat shrinkable butt connectors, and it's not pretty, but it works. So basically just get yourself 2 connections for the ground and you'll be set. All right, last piece that you need for your power supply is an actual iPhone brick. So if we look here, you can see under the output, it says 5 volts and 1 amp. It's exactly what you're looking for. If you have a Samsung, a lot of them will be 5.3 volts, 2 amps, or 5 volts, 2 amps. Everything that I've seen when people build their own power supply boxes, they're using a 1 amp, 5 volt 1 amp step down. So I tried to keep everything the same. All right, so there is one little specialty tool that you're going to need. This is a T25 Torx bit, but it has the anti-theft, or the anti-tamper, I think they call it, hole in the center of it. You will not be able to adjust the TPS if you do not have this socket. So coming over to the sled, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to unplug the throttle position sensor, which is this plug right here. Now if we look at the plug, you can see the one towards the airbox is the power, the center is your signal, and the one more towards the engine itself is your ground. And those pins in there, you can see them, they're small. Bear with me here. There, that's what we're looking for, is those guys right in there. You can see them. First thing I like to do before I go and hook up any wires is we're going to take our anti-tamper T25 and we're going to just loosen up the 2 screws that tighten down the TPS onto the carburetor body. And you don't want to loosen them too far because if you are set right, you're not going to have to move this at all. Oh man, there we go. Bear with me, it's about 10 degrees in my garage. Hands are a little chilly. All right, so there, now we're loosened. All right, I just want to clarify one thing. You are going to plug this into the wall just like you would if you were actually using your phone. It seems weird, but this is an AC to DC converter. This is safe to do. I've done it, and this is how we're going to do it today. It's time to hook up our power supply. Now, leave this unplugged until you're ready to go. All right? It's less room for error. I just let it sit down here until I'm ready to go. So, remember looking at our connector, far left towards the airbox is power, signal, and then ground is towards the engine. So we're going to use that same principle with our harness that we built. So remember earlier I said my blue is my power. We're going to go and hook that into this pin. It helps if you have a nice fitting connector here because these do not like to stay in. So there we go. Ground, power, and then this is where I'm going to back probe with my meter. Now the power for my meter is going to go to the center wire, or the center blade, and that's where I'm going to read my voltage from. Okay, so I have my power supply plugged in. Our leads are good to go here. I'm going to try and route this a little differently. There we go. Turn my meter on. Now you want to turn your meter on to DC. I do 20 volts because that's how you're going to see this. Get this out of the way so you can actually see the meter. Right now it says 0. I don't have any of the leads hooked up. First and foremost, let's go ahead and do our back probe. Okay, so there you can see I got the meter. It's back probed into the ground. Now what we're going to do, you see 0 volts, that's normal, that's good. Move this out of the way. Now there's that center blade in there, you can just barely see it, right there. I'm going to take this red lead and I'm going to put it right on there. Alright, you can see we're reading 0.53 volts. That's good, everything's hooked up right, we're getting voltage. Now when you adjust these throttle position sensors, usually the spec, I don't know about Articats or Skidoos or anything, but for Polaris the spec is at wide open throttle. So what I'm going to do here quick, I'm going to let go of this red wire, you're going to see the voltage go away. I'm going to grab a zip tie and I'm going to zip tie my throttle to wide open. Okay, I'm set to wide open throttle. Now for this sled at wide open throttle, the spec is 4 volts. So let's go back and touch this again. Okay, we can see we're at 3.68. So we're a little off. So now all you do to adjust this is you just take that throttle position sensor and you rotate it. So when you push it towards the airbox, your volts go up. Now it's real finicky, so you gotta go really slow. There we go, 4 volts. That's wide open throttle. Perfect. Now there's a good chance when you go and tighten your screws down that your throttle position sensor is going to want to move a little bit. So be really careful when you go in here and do all of this because you maybe just did all this for nothing if you're not careful. And I guarantee you I just moved it. Alright, I had to move the camera in order to get into those screws to tighten them down, but after you tighten everything down, go back, double check. Mine moved a little bit, 4.01 volts. I'm happy with that. I think that's within spec. I'm going to leave it. Before you unplug the leads from the throttle position sensor, unplug it from your power supply. So here you'll see, there I unplugged it, and my voltage is gone. So we are good to unplug everything. All All right, go ahead and plug your throttle position sensor back in. There we go. Grab your light, and do not forget to take the zip tie off of your throttle. There we go. Also, one thing you do not want to forget to do is give your girlfriend, your wife, your fiance her iPhone charger back.